I'm waiting for the I'm waiting for the podcast intro, but it's not happening. So, hello and welcome everyone to the Milwaukee and Chicago Power BI user group. Today we are privileged to have Tommy Puglia from the Chicago user group speak to us and talk to us about all the amazing things that he's been exploring with, changing, developing inside Power BI goals. So hey guys, welcome back. Nice to see you again after this morning. It's good to see you
Yes, it's
again.
been so long.
I know, right?
I don't know whether to say welcome to our user group, Tommy, or thanks for having us crash yours. Either way, I'm excited to listen to you talk tonight about one of Mike's favorite topics.
Oh yes.
Oh, this is a long time coming. This is a long time coming. We didn't have a December one.
I'm willing to be convinced on if I've been a little skeptical on goals, so we'll see if this is gonna change my tune here with goals. I'm pretty sure I need to learn my new at some point. We'll see what happens.
Oh my gosh!
Any teasers? I got one. I'm going to tease something out before we get started with Tommy.
Yeah,
we got a new podcast now.
Seth and Tommy only, no Mike.
It was something, Mike, you and I talked about a little bit earlier this morning.
Yeah,
right? Little teaser. We've been playing around with the backup and restore, especially with large models.
Yes.
Into Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, and it's amazing. So expect some upcoming kind of material around the findings we have. But so far, super impressed, and just it's in quotes Mike's game. It's a game changer.
It is a game changer
when dealing with the large models. So not only backup and restore, but it's essentially a path out of really late nights refreshing large model partitions.
Yep.
Midweek or weekend work. It's DR and being able to like unwind a breaking change of a model that just took down all your reports. So far, loving it. So we'll be bringing some new stuff in that realm.
Yeah, and really this is around. I mean, part of this is, hey, I need to preload a data model that's going into production that has, gigabytes of information in that data model. Yep. It could take your SQL Server or a process that you have to build, custom process to load hours, couple hours, like 5 to 6 hours. I mean, you could take a long time to load data. So being able to load data into a data model during the workday is huge. I don't want to be working late nights and weekends just because the model has to go down for a period of time.
One of the biggest things, right, is especially with the larger model and wide partitions, right? Like imagine just preloading your partitions.
Yep.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
Like, fantastic stuff there. And hey, even better if you want to join us afterwards for our chat. I'd be more than happy to continue this conversation.
Love it.
Listen, this is going to be so riveting. No one's going to. All we're going to be talking about is goals.
That was a tease. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right.
So in our typical format, so for those of you who are new to our monthly format, we typically do a Power BI user group session. We would have done these normally in person, but with the world the way it is right now, we're doing them online, and we've been doing it for a while now. So the goal is to have Seth and Mike and Tommy be organized enough that we can get enough speaking engagements to actually get a full schedule for a whole year. Last year we were 11 out of 12 successful, so I guess maybe about 90%, I guess, somewhere around there. But we're going to try and have user group sessions every Tuesday, the last Tuesday of every month. We typically do these in a presentation portion, which is right now. Tommy is going to talk to us a little about presentation stuff. And then after that, we break into a non-YouTube based meeting. We'll put a link in the chat windows for the various social media places that we're broadcasting. And then you can join us live. So the idea is jump on a Teams call with us. We hang out. We just talk about Power BI, typically for an hour, but sometimes it goes later if we really get into a good topic. So with that, Tommy, it's all you, man. Talk about goals.
Let's do this. All right. So for those who are Chicago based, we miss you guys. If you guys did the form, actually, let's start off now. So Mike is going to put a link into the live stream on YouTube and LinkedIn.
Yes, I will.
This should take you about a minute to do. Nothing more. Shouldn't really be anything that's going to really take up your time, but we're actually going to show that a little later today. So I think, oh, good. Alex is here. Oh man, Alex was here. saw my Seattle user group, and he gave me a bit of adjective for my Zoom abilities. So I added a new tool to my dashboard this time, so we'll see what happens. But alrighty, so yeah, let's try to fill out the form. Like I said, it should take you about 2 minutes. All right, so let's kind of dive in on goals and Power BI. And just for quick reference, just Mike and Seth, we'll stop a few times through this whenever we'll have a discussion. Obviously, have the dialogue too, so there'll be a few breakups. So please ask questions in the chat. We'll try to answer them as we go through as well, not necessarily leave it for the end. For those who are new, welcome to the Chicago Power BI User Group and also the Milwaukee Power BI User Group. My name is Tommy Puglia. I lead the Chicago Power BI User Group. Absolute honor. We're trying to get back in town soon. Depending on the poll results, we'll actually see. So a few things about me. I am in Chicago, obviously work at CompTIA, and basically my focus is on how is data integrated, analyzed, and automated, and kind of advancing that culture and advancing the way people actually measure, from the aligning the business objectives to actually decision making. I've had the honor of being a Microsoft MVP like Mike and Seth for quite a few years now. I am the youngin of the group in that respects, but it's absolute honor being able to speak, being able to share this passion, this love, and this nerdiness with a lot of people. I also do training on the side as well. And so if you want to learn more about goals, let me know. But just a few things about me. And if you like this this session, you like my session, but you wish I talked a lot less, as always, there is a podcast for that.
Yes.
So there's no better way to say that. So basically, and you'll see this a little actually in this session's content and the way it's delivered. There's a lot of resources out there on the how. And, all of us who live and breathe Power BI got to figure something out. I literally jumped from one computer to here about 10 minutes ago because I was trying to figure out how to do a filter, a variable around virtual tables and referencing a column. So we all love the how. However, we have realized in our careers in Power BI that that's a very small part of the story for it to actually be successful in a business, or just in a group of more than apparently 3 people. So we really have dived in. We started this year where we just finished our 77th episode today on just the little things, not necessarily like why do a bar chart, but basically why doesn't anyone like a bar chart? So we call it the water cooler. It's probably every thought that you've ever had after sharing a report, or any discussion you've had with someone who's also like-minded. And we just want to put it on the public forum. Join us on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 7:30 a.m. Central on YouTube and LinkedIn. Follow Power BI Tips, or just subscribe on Apple and Spotify. We love the community. We're happy to do it. So cool beans. All right, guys, let's jump in. This is a long time coming. This session's actually thanks to one special Mike Carlo, as our second episode ever on the podcast was also after the Microsoft Business Application Summit in May, and they announced goals, which I thought was awesome. And I think Mike said it was awesome. And then he used it and never used it again.
Nope. Haven't still used it.
I was very determined and basically realized that there's a few things about it that are actually really powerful, but it's not like a lot of the other products in the Power BI ecosystem for it to really be successful. So I was determined to prove Mike wrong and tell him, no, you need to start looking at this. So
Yes,
to kind of dive into, what are we talking about? We are focusing on let's just briefly talk about the scorecard feature. We can have days and days of the actual hows and nuts and bolts of it, but I think that's not necessarily the issue with this, because it's a pretty simple and intuitive thing to look at. So we're going to just kind of go through some of these components of it, and then we'll kind of dive into today's session. So what is it? It was released in 2021. It allows you to connect basically any data point in a report to a current target number. So basically, you can actually track a card, a bar chart, a line chart, and actually see that number change over time and actually compared to a target. A lot of legacy actually business application platforms used to have something similar. So Power BI is really bringing the heat with this. Why do it is really an amazing part because it actually allows you to connect multiple data sets from really the entire tenant and every content you have access to. So it's really focused on goal based. And again, how are we trending towards something in one single simple interface? What they've been able to update is actually allow Power Automate. So actually automation. So anything you can connect and be triggered in Power Automate, you can then pull into Power BI goals and vice versa. There's triggers for goals to actually send out to the uh, business sphere, so to speak. So a few components that we're going to talk about. We're going to briefly review, and then once we do the demo, we'll show it what it looks like. Basically, the components of a scorecard is really the first high level is a scorecard, and then you can have goals underneath it. Each goal has a current value. This can be something you set yourself. So it can come from something you manually input. So you can say 5, or you can actually connect to any Power BI report and any particular visual that you have and basically set that to be linked to that current value. So anytime that value changes, it will update the scorecard. It doesn't matter if it's in the same workspace, it can be anywhere in your tenant. What the other side of this is the target value. And this target value is basically what you're trying to compare against. To basically say, hey, we're at 80% of goal. We are supposed to make $3 million, or maybe you're doing something simple like year over year. Your target would just simply be your previous year to date. A few other components that I'm not a huge fan of: the due date. Not sure how much it makes sense. Doesn't really do anything, but it's available if you need it. The status is actually something that is really important for the success of this. However, it's really not configurable in terms of what it shows, but there are still some cool features that I've definitely been relying on. So that's kind of the essence of a single goal and a scorecard. Few other components, again, being able to connect to any data set or in any report, any data point in a Power BI report based on even a particular bar in a bar chart, or even a particular row in a table. You can filter, you can add your slicers, and then choose the data point. Automation, we briefly talked about this, and we're going to show some really cool features of that today. And again, this ability to show the status of where are we actually trending. So quick flow, and thanks to Mike Carlo for this, as always. So
Me and
this
the
is
me and the icons. I love the icons.
yeah.
I'm
So
always
this is
always building stuff like image all the day long, every day.
it's a unique where it actually flows because again, the input could be, again, since we're dealing with Power Automate, really any multiple spheres of data. It could be tweet, it could be emails, it could be your dataverse, obviously Power BI, SharePoint list. You can trigger from Power Apps, and obviously Power BI. So and that will actually can allow you to connect to that data in a scorecard. But again, the unique thing with this and that they really hit it out of the park that they're still having with Power BI reports is the triggers. So anytime a goal value changes or someone checks in, or someone makes an update to that particular goal, you can actually send that out again through Power Automate, send out an email, send out a Slack channel saying the goals changed. So it's this kind of unique thing where there's a lot of more input output than most other parts of the ecosystem in the Power BI. So that's the components. That's the basic elements. Again, we are going to go through a demo and walk through it. Now, let's talk about, again, the essence of this is let me sell you on it because you might have not heard of it or you might not have seen a lot of people talk about it. And my goal today is for you guys to kind of come out here and really start researching, and for hopefully some of you to write a blog, start talking about it. So the reason why we're selling goals and not necessarily just talking about it today is really focused on a few things that I think have hindered this product or this feature in Power BI. And the first one is going to be lack of engagement from the community. We're going to talk about the why. Some of the things are much more ambiguous and not as clear as any other product or feature Power BI has released. And success is not necessarily really defined again when you look at the scorecard. So the first one is this lack of engagement, and the problem has been this feature was released. This was kind of Power BI's big ticket item, then automated insights, and they really hammered down what scorecards were. And I think a lot of us were excited. Obviously, we did our second episode on this, but the thing is, I think if you have tried it, you might have connected a few data sets, cool. But then I think what happens is it's even though it's clear as day on what it looks like, once you connect certain data points, you're not sure what to do with it. And I think that's been a lot of the lack of engagement. Marky Insights, I know, is on the chat. He's, I believe, the only one who's actually written a blog post or and definitely more than one about what goals are. And this is from this entire community. So there's obviously some hindrance here, and I don't believe it's because it's a poor product. The bigger part of this is where does it actually fit? You have dashboards, reports, and scorecards. You have data sets. So where does it fit actually in the user story? Am I supposed to go to a dashboard, then a scorecard, and then to the report, or the report to the scorecard? And I think that that lack of clarity has really hindered its growth, and I think that hindered its engagement by the users. So why actually use it then? If we're not sure where it fits and no one's really showing you examples, or here's certain use cases for it. I think where I'm going to align it is really what I'm going to call the true dashboard. Uh, Chuck Sterling, who was recently retired, told me years ago when he was the Power BI product manager that his goal was to deprecate dashboards. And at the time, we were using dashboards for everything. This is probably back in 2017, and I was horrified by that. Now I understand why. I'm not sure how many of you guys actually really rely and use dashboards, but we've seen a navigation on going away from dashboards because it's kind of helpful. But again, the purpose of the dashboard is to be that high level view on where you're actually trending. Trouble is you're just pinning to a lot of visuals.
I'll jump in here with Tommy on this
Yeah.
one. I'll echo that. I think dashboards came out, and I kind of like I remember sitting in consulting engagements with Seth, and we're explaining what is a dashboard, and I can explain what it is, a simple plain pane of glass, but other than that, we never use it for anything. We would talk about
Right.
that it's a feature that is there, but other than like go to the dashboard and then click an image or a button or like click something there to navigate you into a report. That's basically all we use the dashboards for. I don't think we ever
Right.
really implemented any solutions around a production level dashboard. Do you remember anything, Seth, that you did?
No, man.
Yeah. This is why I think they've moved on from dashboards.
And we actually, again, when the dashboards came out, our kind of adoption of it was you had to have a dashboard for a report, or at least some reports, because what would happen to people would filter a report and they weren't sure what the true number was. And it was also, we just thought, and also initially you couldn't share a report.
Yep.
That was one of the first features. So we use dashboards kind of as like a, this is your high level view, but as reports have become more and more feature rich and there's been not a lot of updates to dashboards.
Nope.
What's the purpose? So again, that's the purpose of what a dashboard should be. One of my favorite things I've really ever heard, it's one of more, I don't know if it's inspiring, I don't know where it stands in terms of why it affected me, but Steve Jobs, when he was doing a keynote to introduce the iPad for the very first time, he was basically talking about this idea of, if we're going to introduce something into our product line, it has to have a purpose, and it has to be better at some feature, some actions than our other products. If it's not better than doing other things than what we already have, then it has no reason to exist. I'll never forget hearing that going, man, that guy is very smart, but just thinking of it that way rather than just introducing things. So scorecards, does that fit? I think absolutely has a purpose where it can align those numbers and your metrics better than a report can. And obviously, I think a lot better than a dashboard can. But the problem is what a lot of people think is you just set it up and go. Like most things in Power BI that you try out for the first time, uh, the bookmarks navigator that came out, hybrid tables, or just a feature for a consumer, it's very intuitive on what you need to do and what you need to set up. And then it's, ta-da, there's that magic. The problem, and I think that lack of engagement with goals is you connect to your data points, the things that you think are logical, and you kind of look at it and you're like, okay, and it doesn't really seem to help. And I think people have just kind of gone, I guess there's no point to this. So that's where goals are a little different, or the scorecards are a little different, because this has to align also with your culture and your business, your team, your organization. Do they actually have metrics and key results that they're actually aiming for, and not just we want to improve our sales from last year, but true target numbers, true things that are aligning with the business and that are also unknown through the company, are transparent. Um, and again, there's that part of the needing the training to explain like basically what that purpose is to the users. But again, if you don't have a company that is focused on objectives and how that aligns with the business, is marketing doing their own thing, or are they doing work that is in line with working towards what the company's trying to do? The company wants to increase their monthly active users by 10%. So marketing should have a game plan, and they should be able to have a way to measure that. There's a score, there's all a good case of where you can also find where goals fit in. So it's not just connecting to a data point and now you just have a better view of it. It will not work that way. So let's talk about setting it up. Where do we start? And a few elements of, as we talked about, measuring your business that is huge for what makes scorecards work. So again, we're going to just kind of dive in. Do you guys have any questions? Are there any questions in the chat at this time?
No questions yet. I think there's one question from, do you know if a scorecard can be incorporated into a Power BI app?
Yes.
That's the easy answer.
Yeah.
Looking through some other questions here. Some people are so I threw out the question of anyone using scorecards, and a couple answered back, nope, not yet. No one seems to have no one really answered those questions, so I would appear that most of our audience is not using scorecards in production or doing daily things to get today. Question was, Tommy, in your opinion, why are scorecards probably a premium only action? So scorecards, so that's another, how do you get scorecards? One is you can only get scorecards in premium. Tommy, do you have any opinions why you think scorecards is just a premium feature?
Because like we discussed, premium per user is just now Power BI Pro 2.0.
Yes, exactly.
So there's not, that's
think
really why. So
they're available with premium PPUs.
You got to pay for it. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. There's no capacity or any enhancement that allows goals to magically work because you're on premium. It's just Microsoft, I think, probably trying to sell premium per user.
Would you argue though a little bit here is it, if this is a little bit of marketing waving hands a little bit around, look at premium, we've got all these things. Oh, and by the way, you get these goals things. They look beautiful. Wouldn't you think though, like if I think about, and Seth and I think we talked about this very briefly this morning, was goals are made for like bigger organizations kind of thing. I mean, not that it's just a feature only for only big organizations, but I'm thinking through like it's year end, right? The year just ended. We're in a new fiscal year for some companies. Right now, a lot of teams are going through the activity of building out what is important to us for 2022, right? And so there's this whole, Tommy, I think what you're going to explain here in some of the
Mhm.
demo pieces is there are high level objectives in my company. We have to produce X number of dollars revenue. And so what you want to do is in those cases, you want to be able to tie. I mean, when I was in Johnson Controls for a number of years, we'd have like these, whatever you, how many goals you had as an employee, right? I'm the frontline worker. I'm doing the engineering work down way in the basement of the building. But like my goals of what I'm trying to produce is trying to help the bottom line of the company, produce this new actuator, produce this new product, bring down cost on these XYZ things so that you have at the end of the day the bottom line revenue that the whole
Mhm.
company can review. So as I think about goals, it seems to fit the mindset of I'm a bigger organization and I need to have goals at the manager level, goals at the department level, and goals potentially at the company level that we want to monitor across multiple teams.
I think absolutely for big companies, but I think especially mid-sized companies too, they might not necessarily have the culture or the
I'm
um
not ruling it out. I'm just saying, like,
yeah.
I feel
I know
like,
what I see what you're
you see what I'm saying?
saying.
Like, it's a threshold point. Like Microsoft says, okay, yeah, everyone may want this, but we're gonna try and push you guys and the people that are the big customers, that are the big premium users. Maybe we start. You guys automatically get it because you already kind of do
Yeah.
this as part of your culture. You don't get to be a big company without making some sort of goals. So maybe that's where this has
Yeah.
kind of come out of.
Well, premium it also works with premium per user.
True.
So that's that mid-sized company.
Yep, it can get you in there easily too without having to pay $5,000 a
Yeah.
month.
Exactly. So if you're premium per user, this can work. This works. So maybe if you have 10 people at your company, goals don't necessarily help because again, the purpose of this is I think exactly like you said, it is you have your high level scorecard, the corporate
Hmm.
scorecard, but then there also should be things that are aligned to that for, what is marketing doing? What is this department doing? What is this region doing that's aligning towards our overall goal? So
Yes.
if you're a company of 100, scorecards still make absolute sense. Again, if you have that business culture or kind of that business mindset already
Hmm.
of that cascading goals, so to speak, at your company.
Another question for you, Tommy, that kind of came in. Keith is asking, could we play with this inside Power BI desktop? Can you get goals inside desktop?
Kind of.
I like that
So
answer. Okay, good.
so um yes, yeah. So that's probably the best way to put it. So there's kind of two ways, and there's something they are going to be updating. It creates a data set, but doesn't really work that well. And you can also use the custom visual, but they're getting there. So
Awesome. Enough.
cool.
That's it
So
for the questions. Back to your
all right.
presentation. Back to your
So
regularly scheduled
scheduled.
programming.
Yeah, we're about to go off on a whole other tangent. So
Cut that
why
off.
do businesses not have goals? 45 minutes later.
Let's not do that.
Exactly.
All right,
So
back to you.
let's talk about quickly just where to start, where we're going to start, and then again, this idea of OKRs. So first, we're going to talk about where do you actually begin then. So let's say you're a Power BI developer, creator, or author, and you don't have an idea for what scorecard you can do. There's no bulletin at your company that says, here's our corporate goals and here's our team's targets for the year. And they're really structured and measured correctly and easily measured, easily decision led. And if you have that, then honestly, you probably don't need a scorecard because you guys are well set. But the problem is usually a lot of things that companies do, they don't think they can measure or they're not actively measuring, even though they could. So there's a few ideas in terms of jump starting things for you to do that can actually help not only just create a scorecard, because I think if the goal today or the end result is you created a scorecard, then we're not doing our job. The beauty of scorecards is I think it forces the pro and people who are working on it to think in a different way. And this has been our problem with not necessarily Power BI, but how people perceive data is it's a commodity. I just want to see it, right? And I just want to consume this data and then I want to play with it a little and then I'm going to go back to making decision based on my gut. But with goals and this like actually creating a scorecard, you need to have something already in mind in terms of, wait, what are the business objectives? Wait, marketing's spending $10 million a month in campaigns. How do they know they're successful? And we're looking at sales. Like, okay, well, are you looking at ROI? Did you have an idea of, those, all of a sudden these things start coming to light on all the things that an organization is doing. That's like, are we measuring that? So a few ideas right off the bat that scorecards are going to also help is next report request that you get in. It's a little new. See if you can vet it for a scorecard alignment. So actually working with the stakeholder and saying, hey, the report that you want, we're going to create a scorecard with it. So let's talk about, what's the purpose of this? We had this discussion today on the podcast, so which was perfect. But the idea of what are you trying to measure towards, or what decisions are you trying to make? And then starting to say, okay, what we can do for you, and again, just like Microsoft sell it, but like what we can do for you is, really show you a really easy way to show your target numbers and see how you're tracking. So if it's sales for a certain sales team, do you have a quota for them? Do you have something that you're wanting your team to reach by user, or by a particular region? Great. So let's build that into the scorecard. Building a report from a scorecard is actually almost the right way to do it. It feels right very much because all of a sudden that report, you build a scorecard, you're connecting to these values. Another feature I forgot to add with scorecards, it's very, very easy for a user to say, okay, the number is this coming from Power BI, to go to that report, and Power BI will basically show you, hey, what you clicked on is this report. It will highlight it. It will show additional information. So then you're thinking about that user experience. Okay, we're looking at our number of followers on Twitter and for the social media team, and they're trying to go to 10 million by the end of the month. So what would that report page look like then? So all of a sudden now you're really creating this little narrative of top level goal target. You're over, you're behind. So what would help that user? So try it out. Again, vet out the request, because unfortunately not everything maybe deserves it. But the other part of this too is you, and my goal with this too is to start having the business and teams and people thinking differently about data and about reports and about requests, and thinking about what are you doing that we can measure, that's saying if you're successful, which goes into the next thing that I am completely all for. And I'm just getting into, again, a few books, a few pieces of content, but I'm learning more about just putting objectives and key results in here, or OKRs. There's a great book out there called Measure What Matters, that really talks about this idea. At first, I was hoping it was a very analytical book, but it's a very business. It's still a great book, but it's very much on the business side of like how a company thinks. Like, this would be a great book if I was a CEO, and I'm not a CEO, but
Not yet.
not no, this presentation, but but the idea of, like, Dell's one of the examples in there. The guy is a venture capitalist, but he worked for Dell on basically Dell's I forgot his name, Jim something, but he was a CEO at Dell that basically is the founder of Objective and Key Results. And the idea here is anything that you're doing, like, hey, we're going to launch this product. Hey, we're going to go into this new country for our marketing, or whatever your company does. You should have those objectives, and the teams below them should be aligned with that. So my objectives, I should have some key results, things that I'm going to do. Like, I want people to be engaged in Power BI this year. That's great, but there should be a way to measure it. My key results should be more usage, should be less errors from people, should be less tickets on training, and should be more people attending my roadshows. Those are my key results. The idea from there is then someone under me is, let's say, in charge of the analyst role, is their objective is to get people to go to the roadshow. and et cetera, et cetera. So again, there's obviously a lot more to this, but the idea is when you say, hey, we were successful, the company did great, marketing did great, it should always be followed by the statement like, we were great as measured by what? And I think that's a transformative way to think about anything you do, but especially for organization or even part of a team at a company. What were they doing all year that they're successful as measured by what? So fun, philosophical side of things. Let's actually get into it and let's show what a demo is. And we're going to show one that's already set up, and we're going to actually create one and show some of the automation side of things. Few things.
Tommy, before we get into that,
Yes.
this might be a good opportunity to ask a couple questions.
Okay, perfect.
One thing we've been going on here in the chat window is goals an actual premium level feature? I'm digging into the documentation on this one.
User.
Did they just change it?
I don't.
No, I think there's this interesting line in the sand.
What am I missing here?
Between goals being like the thing, like a subset, and scorecards. Scorecards being a premium.
Okay.
Well,
and apparently goals not being or something.
a goal exists in a scorecard.
Right. Which is
so apparently a
piece
pro
of...
user can make a goal, but a premium user needs to be able to use scorecards.
Well, you can't create a goal. You can only create a goal in the scorecard.
I don't know. This is again, read the documentation and look at the
Microsoft was ruining.
They just updated it. Dang it. So there's an article. We'll have to check this one out. So for those of you who are on the chat window, I think Marquee Insights Information Channel. I'm not sure who that is, but I think we know these guys. I just don't know which person in the team is Marquee Insights. But I believe they're fact checking this as we speak. So Tommy, things are getting fact checked as you go. Don't worry, we've got you covered here. I will say that there is an interesting question that did come up, and I do want to point this out. All right, and this is something I kind of gave some direct feedback back to Microsoft about as well. Let's just say, for example, your goal was created and has become unachievable, and you need to change that. So someone asks, how would you work with changes in your process, or what would your process of changing when your scorecards show that they're unreachable, or you need to adjust your goals? Is that something that the tool can give you the ability to change your goals?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially you can update your goal any way, you can disconnect to it. That's a really great idea too, because we've had this conversation too, but in a good data culture, if you're not going to meet that objective, one, it shouldn't be 3 months after the fact, but two, if you're worried about yourself or like, if I don't meet this objective, I'm going to fail the company. But no, if you have a good company or a good culture, then you should see a few months beforehand, like, or however, like, we're not going to meet the lofty objective. How can we pivot? What were the causes of that?
Nice.
So, but in the tool, yeah, it's definitely possible. If it's connected to a data point, you can change the target.
Okay.
So, but yeah.
Okay. So it is adjustable after you've made the goal.
Yes.
Okay, cool. No other questions yet? We're still good.
Cool beans. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to just set up a goal. We're going to look at a scorecard. Few little quick bits based on my own experience using scorecards, that what works best and what doesn't. Objectives or metrics that actually have a percentage difference. So like we're trying to get 15% over a certain number. Set or static targets work a lot better than something that's dynamic. And then again, having those static targets generally seem to work better and are more intuitive. What's harder and doesn't really play as nice, like it will work totally fine, but doesn't really provide the value that at least from what I've seen, is usually like dynamic targets. So if you connect your data point to a previous target, like year over year, it doesn't really help trying to see how that's been tracking or trending. And then again, a bad report, because what I realized when I started using scorecards was, oh, my reports are terribly set up for this kind of thing, because I didn't really have that summary view. So there may be some adjustments to be done. So what we're going to do is we're going to view a scorecard and its features. We're going to create a new one, and we're going to use some automation to basically see how this integrates throughout this system. So let us dive in to Power BI. And to make Alex happy, I'm going to use this little tool here to help see where we're going.
Whoa, fancy.
Yeah, so we'll see if that looks pretty cool. I don't know what it's even called, but I'm just going to make the cool. All right, so everyone should be able to see the mouse. The zoom it work.
Zoom it works.
Awesome.
We can zoom in.
Zoom it works. So what we're going to do is, if you have not seen before, but you probably have seen in Power BI, there's going to be on the left-hand side your little scorecard feature. And I'm realizing that these two apps don't play nice, but that's all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to goals on the left-hand side. And then there are a few things I do not care for here. For example, they have this recommended and they just put a bunch of data points here, and honestly makes it more confusing than needed. But we're going to go to a scorecard that I've created that's been set up. I'm actually using, it's one of those nights that I spend way too late trying to download the Amazon Works and Contasso data sets and basically what I did, because it's 7 years old, created a data flow, and it basically updated the date so it's way in the future, so it's actually kind of like live data, but no one needs to know that. But it's actually, anyways, so we're going to go and we're going to click on the Chicago Pug scorecard, and let's kind of dive into a few of the components here. So the first thing we're going to see here is the title, and you can add a description, which I highly recommend. And then you'll see basically a few cards here that basically show how many goals and then statuses. So I can see how many are on track, which ones were at risk. In the actual scorecards themselves, again, I am in a scorecard, and what I'm seeing here are the goals. What I can see is the name of the goal. I can see, by the way, if I draw and zoom it and I want to like keep moving, I don't want to zoom out, but remove that drawing. What do I do, Mike?
Control E.
Control E.
Yeah, so if you draw and zoom it, and if you do a little square around something, if you draw it, Control E will erase it. Aha.
What if I want to remove the,
you can't.
Okay, I got it.
You got it?
Okay. Cool.
You got it.
Demo works. So we basically see the name of the goal, and then basically what we're going to do is let's take a look at this COGS 3-month period over period. I can basically see the current value and the target number, and then again you can see the status. A few other items here that if you can't see when I'm viewing over, when I hover over, it actually shows me, hey, this is connected to a Power BI report. Click on this to go to that report. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually click on the scorecard. And when I do this, when I actually click on the scorecard or the goal, it actually shows me the trending day by day, and actually shows me where it was. So I can see basically when we first started this was under my target, which was to be period over period, have a positive COGS. And what I can actually see is how this has been trending over time. I can see also the history, so I can see how this has been changing. If this is a collaborative goal, we can obviously work together, and I can see who's been updating it. And I can see what the change was and what the current value was on a certain day. Obviously, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, that's just a data set. Well, yes and no, because in Power BI, if you have a card, you necessarily can't see what that card value was on every given day unless you do an email subscription. But this actually provides the historical numbers here in a really unique way. So let's go back. So what I'm going to do is, you'll also notice in the scorecard that there are these drop downs. So what we can really do is actually not just create a lot of different goals, but you can actually create sub goals. So you can have your summary, what do you want your cost of goods to be overall, but then what if you want to actually have that broken up by a few different other metrics that are also important. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on the expand, and I can actually see there are a few ones over here that also are important to me. So I can see my revenue trending month versus 6 months. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually go to the products with profit. So I basically just click on the expand. So it makes it a lot easier to see what's going on. And I can see, I want to see how many of my products actually have a profit. And based on the current month we're in, based on compared to the rolling 3 months. And what I can actually see, I can see what the rolling 3 months was. So the target number is connected to Power BI data set. To me, I'm not as concerned that this number does change dynamically because, again, in this particular situation, I just want to make sure this month is always trending higher than the previous 3 months combined. And again, with that ability, I can actually see how this has been trending. The one thing that I'm hoping Microsoft does solve this year that is makes dynamic targets really difficult is you the dynamic target does not necessarily get shown when what it was at a certain point. So let's say the dynamic target last month was 85%. I have no insight to that. And that is something very difficult. So if you are setting a lot of scorecards or you're thinking of ideas, I would generally say try to stay away from targets that are more dynamic than not. But what I can see here is I can actually again see when it was on track, and but I can also see the status changing. And what the status is that they just released in quarter 3 or 4, Microsoft, is being able to change the status of a scorecard automatically or based on rules, which has greatly helped. But what I can also see in here is the sub goals. I can see bikes and I can see basically the current month number. I just want this to always be over 75%. And the same idea, I see the bikes products with profits 3 versus the previous 6 months. So we're showing a lot of things, but obviously it's probably not helping because again, we don't have the context. So let's kind of dive in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say products with profit, current month. Okay, we are over. That's great. I'm just going to click on the open this report and scorecard. And what you'll see here is we're brought to the report. We're brought directly to the report that is connected to. Not only that, but you can actually see that it's highlighted. I can actually see the data point is highlighted. It's a card. It's not a line chart. So it's not actually showing you that it is a DAX measure. So it's not actually showing me the, it's not just a table of historical values. It also opens up the automated insights. So I can see the percent of products with profits is currently at 89%. And then I can actually dive in, and what they're really trying to do is actually combine that automated insights with targets. So now I can actually automatically see, okay, overall products profits at 89%. Then I can see some of the items that they think that is affecting that. So I can see, okay, so products to profit for country and region. Okay, for different colors, that could be a big reason why it's affecting this. So it's showing me this KPI analysis automatically. Let's go back to the report. And what I'm going to do now is actually, I'm going to click on quick things here that we're going to actually point out with the report here. This report's dynamic. So everything on the page is all on a rolling basis. So basically all the sales at cost, my products with profit. If I want to actually say I want the general number to be 3 months, not necessarily just looking at the current month, all I have to do is just hover over. So let me just do this for you guys real quick because that's probably really difficult to see. All I have to do is go here. I'm going to say, let's look at the last 3 months. So now everything's actually going to show me what all the values are based on the rolling 3 months, not necessarily just the current month we're in. And we see how everything changes. So let's go back to the scorecard. So I'm going to actually choose this products with profit 3 months versus the previous 6 months. So I'm looking at the last 3 months and I want to compare versus a 6 month total. And you can see here that a lot of things have actually changed. It was at risk for quite a bit, and we just kind of got out of the yellow. I'll click on this guy. Once we go to the report, again, it's going to highlight a different part of the visual. It's going to actually really point out to me, hey, this is what the data point's being based on. And again, showing me that it's bikes. This is the actual point you're going. And remember, it remembers the filters. So again, in a scorecard, I can actually configure the filters the way I need to, then connect to the data set. It doesn't have to be the default view or the default state of the report. We'll do a few more examples of this. And let's say I believe the one that I want to do, COGS trending. And I actually want to see the Van Art. This is another report. So I believe this is yes. So this is a different report. It's not the same report. So it's a different data set. And I can basically see what was actually being pointed. And you can actually see it's not just one visual, but it's actually a particular point in time in that visual. Is the Van Arstel number. And so the last thing we'll do here, just to kind of show what we can do, I believe it's, here we go. Well, it was one of those that seems to be missing, but that's all right. So the last one I want to show, because I know there was one that was working perfectly, but I guess it got removed. Demos are always fun. I want to show one that has the automated insights because I had a perfect one, seemed to be missing. No insights, whatever. So the point being here is I'm actually connecting to a data point in a report that based on my filters could be any page. It could be whatever filters I need. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a certain visual. If I were connecting to more scorecards here, so if I was actually connecting to, which I believe this one's behind, if I want to actually look, has it always been behind? Because I see that it's was on track just a few days ago, but we just started dropping. So now this is something I want to dive into. This is the last one we'll click through and then we'll create one. So I can actually see that this is actually a line chart in here. It's actually showing me what point in time that this was being selected. Not only that, it's showing me the anomalies, the trends, and I believe the KPIs in here and everything that may be affecting that based on the filters that I already configured for that scorecard. So I can see what maybe the explanations could be. So again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a particular type of visual. It could be a row in a table, but this is really where that value of a report that helps explain what your scorecard has becomes so important. So let's take a look at what we were looking at today with when it comes to our scorecard. So let's actually do that after we show how to create a report. So what I'm going to do now is let's create a scorecard in Power BI, and apologize for the brief confusion just a few minutes ago. There was one that we'll actually do right now because it will work. So I'm actually going to go to goals. I'm going to create a new scorecard, and we're going to call this the Carlo for goals.
Yeah, give me some good goals.
Yeah, and we'll add this to the workspace. It's got to be a premium workspace, and we'll create it. We're off to a blank slate. And again, this is where it kind of makes it a little more ambiguous because where do you start? You should have a game plan before you already begin, and again, on what you're going to be connecting to. So let's go into here, and what I'm going to do is I want to connect to that line chart because I actually do want to trend all the data points. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull this right here. And I'm going to say my sales at cost. And we're going to say we'll enter the name. And then you can see that I have a few options here. I can actually enter a value myself. I can configure the formatting. So I can, if I wanted this to be 55, I could. Or you see the options that says connect the data. So that's exactly what we're going to do. And then what happens is there's a pop-up that comes up that will show you every report you have access to in your tenant. Again, it does not matter at all what particular items or like what workspace it's in. So I'll go to my favorites and let's choose Van Arstel goals just for the heck of it. So I'm going to connect. And then once I connect to that report, it's going to basically show me here all the pages and all the basically everything that's aligned to it. So I'm going to expand in the top right. You can actually expand, And basically you can see here is if I want to connect to my cost of goods year over year here, or actually my 3-month period over period. Once I select that data point, you'll notice that it's showing me the current value. What's really helpful too here, it's actually showing me what's affecting that visual. So it says filters and slicers that are affecting this visual. So for example, what I can do is I'll exit out of that. If I just want to choose, for example, the let's say the Leo here, and the Leo here is the 57%. I can actually click on that data point and it's actually showing me what's affecting it. So you selected the Leo as the manufacturer for the COGS, the 3-month period over period. Finally, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to click on this line chart that's showing me my current cost of goods, a rolling, and then basically what it is for the last 6 months. So now with this particular visual, it shows that I have multiple measures in here. So I can choose from any of the measures. It doesn't have to necessarily be the default one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to choose my cost of goods rolling. And it says I can either track all the data points in the time series or just that individual one. And as you saw with the other goals that I showed you, it started in December because that's when I created that goal or connected to that data point. This one goes back to all the way to 2015. So let's click connect. And we can see that the current is here, and we're going to just make this a $sign. You know what? I'm going to actually make the other one here too, just because it'll probably help based on that 6 months. So we'll say connect to data. I'll click on Van Arsdale goals. And then we'll go back to here. And I'm going to click right back here. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually choose that 6 month to actually, we're just going to choose the normal cost. So we have this, we have both data points in here. Let's click connect. And now we basically have our current and target set up. So what I'm going to do here is next thing I'm going to do is simply easy as just going, I can either set the start date or the due date. Again, I'm not a huge fan of that, but what's really neat is the statuses and we're setting up the rules. So what I want to do here is I actually want to set up a certain rules based on how much it changes to the value. So what I'm going to say is percent of target. If the current value is greater than the target number, we'll say great, is on track. Otherwise, what we'll do is we're going to make this if the value is, oh, not sure what happened there. Let's try that one more time. All right, we'll do this real quick. In our slow goals, we'll just do the one general number here. We'll say the 6 month period. We'll make this a percentage to make it a little easier. I'll make this percentage. And we'll just put the target here manually. So I don't have to necessarily connect to a data point. And I'll say, I want this to actually be 17%. Set up the rule. We'll say if it's greater than percent of target, say it's on track. Otherwise, if it's greater than 85, we're at risk. Otherwise, change the status to behind. So we'll save that. Good to go. So what you'll notice here with the line chart, though, is it's actually tracking every data point. So rather than any other particular one, this actually will provide everything in a line chart. Line charts are the only ones that are able to do that. Let's create another one and actually use filters and actually see what we can do with this. So let's click on connected data. We're going to choose this time the Amazon Works report. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on the line chart again. But what you'll notice here is when I change the filter, so what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to go remove that. I'm actually going to change the filter. So I actually want to look at a rolling 12 months. So I'm going to say 12 months rolling. And I actually want to look at, let's say, France from the data point. So I want to see the sales at cost for France over the last 12 months. So I'm actually going to choose France. And then you'll notice here it's basically showing me everything that's being affected here. Not only that, this is what I was trying to actually look for, but you'll notice even though it's a bar chart, there's one data label here, one data point. It's actually showing me everything in the tooltips. So if you add tooltips to a visual, you can actually choose from those to be your scorecard. So in this case, I'm looking over here. I want to choose, I chose Germany. I want to choose products with profit. I don't have to choose. I don't have to necessarily choose the data label that's available there, because when I hover over this, I can see for France that the products with profits is 88%. That's what I want to track. And what I can do here again is based on the filters that are applied, both from a slicer and actually from that particular data point. I can choose the tooltip. We'll say great. And we'll click connect. Here, what I can do, again, I can either enter a number from any other data point, but we could be good to go. So we'll just choose this and say France 87. So I actually created something today that allows me to look at not just Power BI, but I can actually look at various data sources again outside of Power BI. One last thing on the Power BI side of this. Again, if you don't have a report that's set up in a very dynamic way that works with goals that you're going for, this makes it a lot more difficult. The last example I'll show, again, the ones that really are the ones that I've seen to be the most successful are either cards, where we're actually tracking towards a percentage of growth that we want to do. So in this case, we'll say product with profits. And so what I can actually do is, let's say I actually wanted to change, affect this products with profit, and I wanted to show only bikes. And I didn't have that ability with the tooltip. So what I can actually do here is I want to look at the last 6 months of products with profit. And I want to make sure, we're trying to really grow our bikes brand. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drill down into bikes. And I really want to focus on our road bikes, because our road bikes have not done as well as they have in the past. So I'm going to click on bikes here. So now that I've clicked on bikes, obviously you can choose this particular point, but if I wanted the line chart, what I can actually do is actually choose um, the period over period here on the line chart. So you'll notice when I click on this, when I click and hold control, it's actually going to allow me to do that particular combination. So I have a drill down under bikes. I'm including road bikes because I held control just like you would normally do in Power BI, and I affected a slicer. In this case, I want to do this, our sales at cost, our product period over period. I'll click connect. We'll have the target to be 4.5%. We can set up our rules. And again, now when I go to the report, we'll go back to read mode. I can begin to track this. Just like you see, it also, remember, tracks all the previous data because it's a line chart. Once I go to the report, it highlights it for me, shows me exactly what's being filtered. It's already pre-selected bikes. So I'm already, in a sense, the user is taken immediately to what the goal is describing. You see the sales at cost. We can, again, drill down the automated insights. To add this to a Power BI app, when you do create a goal, it actually does create a data set. So to the question about can we use this in Power BI reports? So let's take, for example, this particular, the one that we just created, the Carlo for goals. You'll notice there's a data set here. There's obviously not a report, or there's a report, but it's a blank report. You can just simply add this to a Power BI desktop file. Excuse me. But again, right now, the only thing the custom visual does for scorecards is just simply show you the scorecard in it. So this is only one side of the coin. The other side of this is really focusing on the ability to connect to other data sets. So what I did today was actually I looked at the form that I asked everyone to send. And one of the things for me is I want to get back to the office badly, but I'm not going to do that if people don't want to go back. So one of the questions on the form, if you sent that out, was how likely would you go to an on-site event? I'm not going to pursue it if I can't get at least a 5.5 rating. So let's go to January scorecard here, the one that we created. You see, we got a bunch more reviews, and we're not even close now. So you see how many responses people have done to the form. I can see how much people are loving the user groups. I wanted this to be at least a 6 out of 7. I can see what are users likely to return. And again, it's tracking all the different data points that have come accumulated once the data set's changed. So obviously 3.5 out of 7, or my target of at least a 5.5, we'll be doing teams for the near future. So a few other things too is I also have a project that I'm running, and I want to see the phases that are going on with this. Unfortunately, that's not in Power BI. It's actually in a Power App that we're doing that's trying to beginning to track. It doesn't really make sense to create a data set out of this. So you'll notice that everything in this particular scorecard is not coming from a Power BI data set. It could. We can create a goal in here, and it can come from any report that I want. But this is actually coming from the Microsoft form and from their SharePoint. So I created a form, and really all I did was just created a Power Automate that basically updates the scorecard anytime someone submits a form. So we have basically, I added to a SharePoint list because I would like the historical value. But basically what you can see here is we update each goal in here. Well, the user's loving the meetup, it updates with the current value. And any time someone submits a form, my goal's updated. Again, with the power and the features of Power Automate, any trigger, again, Dynamics, Jira, all that can be integrated in here. What I also have is what I was hoping to do, which I probably should check my Twitter now since this probably did work, was I wanted to actually, I'm not checking my Twitter because I'm bored, don't worry. But when a value of the goal changes for the responses, I wanted it to be over 25. If it got over to 25, I would say, hey, we got to 25 responses for the Chicago Power BI user group. And looks like probably failed actually. So it did succeed. So I don't know who is tweeting from, but
It's your other account, your burner account, Tommy.
right?
It's tweeting from your burner account.
Goodness me. So, well, that could be an issue later on, but that's okay. So, yeah, yeah, that other account we've talked about. So basically, what I wanted to do was try to get people. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say there is quite a flurry of chatter around on the chat here. We have all been your comment, Tommy. I'm 100% with you. I was convinced when we started this whole goals thing. I was 100% certain goals were only in premium, but someone had mentioned I think it's in pro, and they made a goal. So I went out in my pro license in my tenant. There is no premium anywhere, no premium ASQs, no premium subscriptions at all, and I'm a pro user, and I'm able to go out and make a goal. So I don't know if this is a miss on Microsoft's side, if they oopsies a license thing or if this is actually changing and we didn't get notified yet. But it looks like if you're
Oh,
playing
I
in the
think
application, you
it
can
needs to
actually
be a
make.
premium workspace.
What was that?
It needs to be in a premium workspace.
Nope, not in
No?
mine. I don't know.
Really?
This is so FYI. We're gonna have to do a little more homework on this one. We might have to come circle back,
That
and
obviously changed.
we'll have to throw something on Twitter on that one potentially at some point. But right now, what I'm seeing right now is goals are able to be used inside a non-premium workspace with a non-premium user. So as a pro user, I went in and just quickly double checked it. Yes, I can. Someone else, Kevin, was actually going out and checking it as well. So Kevin also went in his tenant. He went into an old a tenant. He created a goal with a pro account and was able to connect it to a data set, no problem. So I don't know what's going on, but maybe licensing is changing without us knowing yet. But stay tuned.
Well, now there's no reason not to use
Now
it.
there's,
so-
you know what? I am 100% like, okay, now it's not a premium feature. Michael's got to find a good use case for this to actually use this implication.
And because we're doing a Power BI user group, and it's public knowledge that pro user now works with goals, right?
You
They
heard it
can't
here
back-
first,
they
I
can't
guess.
backtrack.
Right.
They can't backtrack. We know, we've proven, we've shown.
Multiple people in the chat window are checking this out for us. So that's
Yeah.
cool. So now there's really no barrier to entry for any of this. Go to a workspace. Doesn't have to be on pro. Try it out, make a couple of goals, link it up to some data, and see how it works for you. So interesting. Just thought that was worthwhile to note.
That is good because I definitely said it was premium, and it definitely was premium.
It was at one point.
Yeah.
It seems like it is not
I'm
now.
surprised they didn't say, "Oh, by the way."
Nope.
So,
I was looking for. Typically, these are announced on the blog. Usually, the blog announces these kind of things
Yeah.
in front of this. So, I'm gonna reach out to a couple Microsofties directly and say, just checking to make
just
sure.
so you know.
Hey, just so you know, we've been promoting goals.
We should present that in such a way that it's like, hey, you've got the documentation for goals, right? Defining that it's a pro license user. You should go update the scorecard one now too to pro.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We wouldn't want to confuse people.
Yes, I like that one better. That's a better way of addressing the topic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. All right, Tommy, back to you.
Cool beans. All righty. So, part of this that we also have, and I wanted the last kind of integration that I'll show you with this is actually with this particular goal that I have. It's based what the scenarios is projects that we have going on internally, and we're just trying to see what phase it's in, what we need to do to get to completion. So you'll see there's a bunch of updates in a few of these. You can actually see in the marketing platform one here that Mike Carlo has actually been so nice to basically say, what are we trying to do? So we're trying to see if we need Google Tag Manager. There's all these different updates, and you can basically see also what the value was. These are called check-ins. And basically what that allows the user to do is check in, say, hey, we made this big update, so we should be seeing a spike in X, Y, and Z. So what this is actually going on is from Power Apps. So terrible app in terms of the design, but basically imagine you had an application where people could actually see what the phases were and they needed to make a check-in, their own a little update to the project. What they could do is actually say, let's say I need to go to the update database. And basically you see here, there's a few pieces of information. I'll say, and then I'm going to say, that's not even close to being done. Make this phase B. We'll say, app services. To Mumbo, we'll say, we'll click on check. So what that's going to do is that basically triggers the Power Automate, adds to the SharePoint list, goes through the whole thing. And once that's done, it's actually going to update the goal automatically for me. So again, it's not a Power BI report. It is not a, excuse me, it's not a Power BI report. It's not a Power BI data set. I don't have to schedule or configure anything, but it works in the Power BI ecosystem as well. And we'll see that flow will be running. I believe Chicago Pug. We'll run in just a second. For just so you know, some of the automations do take a little to get triggered. So if you're like immediately do not see the data or something occurring that you know that you set up in Power Automate, just hang tight for just a little. But once that's done, it will update the target based on however you set it up. So in this case, I actually have a average, not necessarily the latest value. If you wanted to have the latest value, you could absolutely do that. For example, if I wanted to go into here, created my goal, and I did want these to be static values, I could update that and just be, again, whatever's the latest and greatest. So let's do this. So no, that's good. Excuse me. It's this one. So it did. There we go. So you can see basically the SharePoint list was updated, or wherever your system is. We go through a few things and we see we're updating the goal. But not only that, I'm actually updating that comment. So for my update the database, you can actually see for the comments, the comment's going to be in here once I refresh. Update database. And I can see everything that I wrote in there is in my check-in. So it can really track what's going on. Shows what the estimate is, shows what I put in. But again, in the case how I wanted to do this, I wanted this to be an average of all the submissions. So again, this really allows not a lot of code, not a lot of needing to focus on DAX, but just allows you to kind of go through all those particular items. So
I dig it.
you dig it. So
I dig it.
unfortunately, yeah, I apologize for some of those reports. I think one of my report versions got a little backtracked, but that's all right. Hopefully, this does some justice to what you can do with goals. I think the biggest thing is we haven't seen from the community, like the different types of examples, like real world examples of using scorecards in those scenarios.
Well, we do now. Tommy's going to make up some. He's shown us some good things here. I think this is
so.
I have a real application potentially. So now that this is no longer a premium only feature that we just learned,
Right.
I'm actually thinking, okay, I need to really think about what do I want to measure, and are there legitimate goals across that measurement items that I should be thinking about. So I'm thinking about real use cases now. This is I'll put some more thought into
Perfect.
this.
So
you've inspired me, Tommy. It is and like
cool.
Like Mike set up in the beginning, my organization is
Yeah.
just rolling out our 2022 organizational goals and metrics. And as part of those efforts, we have to align new strategies to how do we achieve those things. And I'm gonna do it in goals, man. I'll let you know how it pans out.
Yeah. So for those who are asking about the data set, and I think the biggest thing is as you create a scorecard, again, it's not something you just do in a sense on the fly. I think there is a lot of planning that needs to go in before you actually create, like, how are you going to structure the targets? How are we going to, like, how are those things going to be updated? Because I think you can even see from the demo too, if some of the data points, while look great in the report, once you connect it, there's no context to that. So how do we want to display this? Is it a forecast rather than the actual value? That could be one of the other issues. And does it update? So planning that out again and providing that transparency for the business is also something that can keep everyone aligned. So I know someone did ask, can we connect to the data in Power BI desktop? I'll basically show a quick demo. I know we're running a little late. This is the January scorecard that includes the form submissions. So I'll connect to that and we'll see exactly what that looks like in here. as it waits to load. So closed. So we'll close that. So yeah, you can connect to it. Doesn't really provide a lot of helpful data right now, if at all. Also, the other part of that too is, again, it is a live connection. So yeah, so once you connect to your data, what you basically see is something I cannot drag. No worries. Let's just keep going because that guy is stuck, which is totally fine with me. So it basically shows you the same pop-up that you would normally see in, yeah, that's not moving. The same pop-up you see when you connect to a normal data set. So the last steps here, again, when it comes to getting this working for your organization, is this is not going to exist, again, in a vacuum, just connecting to a random bunch of data points and people are going to start using this. They are not the solution themselves, but they can help drive it. There is planning that needs to go into it. But however, with all that being said, because with everything with Power BI, it crosses so many bridges and allows us to do so many things. Scorecards, I encourage you to think differently about, only because this is very much one of those less is more, and what it can actually do for your company to, again, align your objectives. And also, I also believe it'll help you how you build your reports as well. I think I have talked more than I've needed to. So measure what matters. Thank you guys so much. So
Cool. Great engagements, Tommy. I thought that was really well done. Again, I got to put my head around, where can I put this? What can I start using this for? So it'll be neat to see where we can kind of come up with some ideas. Also looking for, if you're wanting to hang around. So we're transitioning now out of the presentation time. Tommy and Seth, I've already sent you guys a Teams meeting that should be showing up on your calendars right now. Also, for those of you who are online, I will leave this on for just a little bit extra here. Here is the link for the Power BI after hours Teams meeting. Essentially, this is one that will not be recorded. We're just going to kind of hang out and talk more about Power BI if you so desire. So I will give out the link now. So thank you all for attending. Really appreciate you guys hanging in there with us while Tommy gives us a good demo of some goal stuff. Hopefully, you can go explore some of this. Go in your tenant, create a workspace. Just needs to be a pro license, and go ahead and yeah, go ahead and build whatever you want to build. See what happens. I actually have an open thread to the feature designer to see if, is this really real? Is this really what's happening? So anyways, the link is open. Go ahead and find it, and I'll put it also on all locations. I actually put it just on YouTube, so I'll put it on YouTube and LinkedIn to make sure everyone can have the message as well. So let me just put that out here. Here's the link. If you are on LinkedIn, just give me one moment here, and I'll go ahead and drop out there as well. Thank you very much. I'll leave the end screen here, and we'll see you guys next month. Thanks, Tommy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.